Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tools and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively. Welcome back, everyone. Today I have guest Kathleen Donnelly Israel with me. Kathleen is a widow and a grandmother, and in her early 70s, she set off on a spiritual journey of forgiveness and healing after taking care of her disabled husband for 17 years. On a solo trip, she set forth on a 500-mile trek across northern Spain, walking the Camino de Santiago from Lisbon to Santiago and on to Fisterra. Kathleen is the author of Wisdom on the Camino, her own personal story about her adventures walking the Camino alone, not once, but twice. Welcome, Kathleen. I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
I'm so happy to be here, Tanya.
It's great to have an inspirational story, especially during this time, during the holidays. So today we're going to talk about your spiritual journey on the Camino de Santiago and how this was inspiring for you to heal and to move through some issues around forgiveness. So let's first off, tell us a little bit about the Camino de Santiago. Where is it located and what type of terrain do you expect when you're hiking this?
I mean, really, I started out the first time, the one I wrote the book about, but the first time I started out in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, and you're supposed to walk over the Pyrenees Mountains, but the Pyrenees had snow on them when I went in April, so I had to walk around. But there were still mountains, they just weren't as high. And so it's quite mountainous in the beginning. And then so I was feeling kind of lonely because I didn't see anybody. There wasn't anybody in front of me, behind me, and people just kept passing me up. So that was depressing. but the scenery was so beautiful. I can just sometimes it was like you were in a green room because there were trees above, below. You know, the hills were just really close to you because there were so many really tight valleys, and it was just wonderful. But when I got past the mountains and got to the Mesita, it was flat and I could see people before me and behind me. So I think the reason why I didn't see them before is because the windy roads in the mountains, you know, you couldn't see very far ahead and both behind. So I felt like, oh, good, I'm not here alone.
Yeah. You know? And that was my question is, you know, first off, you know, why did you decide to hike the Camino alone? I mean, you know, I do a lot of hiking and I do it alone sometimes, but that's a pretty big undertaking to hike the Camino alone. First of all, what made you even decide to hike the Camino?
Oh, well, I was taking care of my husband. I thought that we would be riding our bicycles across Spain in our old age, you know, or, you know, France or something. And when he got Parkinson's disease, I was like, okay, well, I guess that's not what we're going to be doing. And so we spent our last years together, you know, with him ill and I was the caregiver, which was, he was a lovely man. He was just a happy person. And so it's always nice to be near happy people, right?
Yeah.
And so in 2013, my friend Judy did the Camino, and I, you know, shared it on Facebook, and I just saw that and I thought, that's what I'm going to do when Ron's done with his disease. I'm going to walk the Camino. And so that became my dream of my future. And then he died in August of 2018. And then I would, you know, you have to get the grave, you got to do, you know, there's so much paperwork, insurance, banks, all kinds of stuff. And by January, I was done with all that. And I thought, well, I guess I better start preparing to go on the Camino. And I wanted to go in the spring because, well, the summer is hot and there's so many people there. It's like a procession. And then, and I didn't want to wait till the fall. So I thought, okay, April. And so I just, you know, Actually, what I did was I used to hike with my friend Severa down by the bay in San Diego. We'd walk 5 miles 3 days a week. And I just thought, I can walk 5 miles without even sweating. And I can walk 5 miles before lunch and 5 miles after lunch. I can do this, so that's what I did. And my sister-in-law decided I needed to climb mountains. So she went and found all the mountains in San Diego and took me up the mountains. At first, I was kind of afraid of the mountains because in the past I hadn't, I guess I was really out of shape before. And so this time when she took me up the mountains, I could just actually do it. I was really kind of buff and I was like, oh, good, I can do this too. And I used to volunteer at a horse ranch. It's a horse ranch where they teach horse riding to autistic kids and disabled kids. And so, I just volunteered out there, picking up horse pucky and big wheelbarrow, and so I got really good core strength from that.
Yeah.
So I was strong.
That's amazing. And yeah, because I was going to say walking the beach in San Diego and walking up mountains. Here, I live in North Idaho, and it's when I moved from Florida, I was walking the beach. And then when I moved out here, I'm like, wow, I'm out of breath. Like I'm not in the shape that I thought I was in just hiking around. And so let's talk a little bit about the trail. So you started in Portugal, correct? And
the second time I went in Portugal, but I walked in France the first time, from France across Spain, and the second one is from Lisbon up to Santiago that way.
So which one did you prefer?
Oh yeah, the Camino Francés is lovely. Well, in spring, so many flowers, and it was cold, but it was lovely. Portugal is more like San Diego. It's quite dry and lots of chaparral, so it's different. So I would think that it would be walking across the Pacific Northwest when you're walking in Spain.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking, because I know France is so beautiful, and I bet that trek would be gorgeous. And so is there an actual designated path, and do you veer off the path? Do people camp on this? Tell us a little bit about the actual trail itself.
You're not allowed to camp. Actually, there are a few places where you can camp, but I wouldn't carry all my camping gear so I could camp at those few places. I mean, you don't want to carry stuff maybe a man would want to carry stuff, but I don't think women want to carry stuff. So you make your pack as low, as lightweight as you can. And then along the way, there's these albergues, and they're just big room with a lot of bunk beds, and sometimes they have a kitchen, and they have, restroom facilities and, showers and stuff. They're all different. They're like, some are run by families, some are run by municipalities, some are run by churches. And then there's just different countries will have an albergue on the Camino, and they support it with the people, because it's such a lovely place to be. People want to be there, and people want to work in the albergues and help people, and it's just very special to be there. Actually, so when you're on the trail, you're always looking for yellow arrows, and they have them painted like on rocks. They have them painted on bridges. They have them painted on. And sometimes they have these cement things that are they have like an arrow, but it's got the mile marker on it. And so those are, I think, put up by the different cities or something, or there's a group that runs the Camino and takes care of the albergues, and it's just a very special thing over there in northern Spain.
That's beautiful. And so were there times that you wanted to quit? Were there times when you were
Not
fearful
me.
or wanted to quit or had had enough?
Not me. I'm just I've always been a walker. I love to walk, and I had in my mind that I wanted to finish the Camino. I mean, I left myself 3 months, to do it. I said, I'm not coming home till I'm done. So I was just really, pretty gung ho. And I did get into like illness. I had a couple of illnesses, and then there were some mean people.
Really?
And yeah, and like in the books that I read, they said, well, the mean people are on the Camino to test your resolve, and
Ooh.
to cause you to grow. And so it was very interesting in that way.
Yeah. And so how long did it take you to walk this?
Well, the first time I walked it in 66 days, and I had, like I say, a couple of illnesses that made me stop for a while. And then I took Holy Week off because I wanted to just be in the town and experience all of Holy Week in one town. And I kind of became one of the church ladies, and it was really cool. They started smiling at me like they recognized me. and then so, and also after the first week, I like it became Sunday, and I just, I get into the albergue and I just flop on my bed and fall asleep. And then I wake up and I ask somebody, is there mass? And they said, no, you missed it. And I was like, gee, I'm on a holy pilgrimage. I should go to church at least on Sunday, And so I decided to take Friday night, I would stay in a hotel. And because you can only stay in the albergues one night.
Oh, okay.
And they don't want you to stay two nights.
Uh-huh.
So if you stay more than one night, you have to get a hotel room. So I would just get a hotel room every Saturday night and then wake up in the morning and go to church. And then, that was kind of like a rest day each week.
Yeah.
So that was good. So I wasn't walking all the time.
Yeah, that's my question. How many miles were you putting in per day to be able to finish that in 66 days?
Right. So, at first I was doing like 10 miles a day, like I had decided. And then, after a while, one day I got to 10 miles and it was lunchtime, and I was like, oh, I guess I have to walk further today. So then I started walking further because, when you're walking that far, you get buff and you can walk further.
Yeah, because you start to build that endurance. And I'm sure too, as you're healing and processing, your mind is kind of moving through things too. I know I do walking meditations often, so I find myself walking longer distances because my mind is in another place oftentimes. And so there's days when, it's a little easier for me to walk and a little harder.
Wow. Yeah, I lose my mind a lot, just in thought. So, just when I'm home or anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So, you started on this spiritual journey to move through healing and forgiveness. So what were some of the lessons that you learned on your trek?
Well, what it really was is that I had studied at home while I was taking care of Ron, a bunch of enlightened thought leaders. And I studied so long, he was sick so long, that I just felt like I had some things to share with people. And so when I walked the Camino, I actually shared these things that I learned at home with people. And well, talking about forgiveness, one thing I did learn on the Camino, it was one of those rude people. And I hadn't slept in nights because of the snoring in the albergues. And somebody told, we went into this albergue, and, you just meet the people that are there. And this lady told me, why don't you sleep in tomorrow? he didn't tell us when we had to leave, because you're supposed to leave by 8:30 or 8 o'clock, depending. And he didn't tell us that. And so I slept in, and then I went in to make my breakfast. And the albergue guy came in, and he started yelling at me in Spanish. And I just smiled at him because I didn't know what he was talking about. And and then yeah, okay, and so I just continued making my breakfast, and I sat down and ate my breakfast, and then I got up and I started making my lunch. And he came in, and his eyes were bugging out, and he like found his English words and told me that I was ruining his day because I was still there. And I offered to pay him more, and he goes, "No, you can't pay me for my day. I should be home with my family, and you're here in the kitchen." I guess he wanted to clean the kitchen and get it done with, And so he was just like really angry. And so I was like, okay, well, I finished making my lunch. I went and got my pack together and stuff. And I went to go into the restroom before I left. And he was standing there in front of the restroom. He had the mop like this and a broom like this across the bathroom door. And he standing there, and he goes, "No, go." And so I grabbed my pack and went out the door, and I was just trying to imagine leaving there without going to the bathroom first, and so I went down, the stairs, and I was like, how do I get out of here? It was an old monastery with, walls everywhere. And so I saw somebody, I said, how do I get out of here? And she showed me to go through this door. When I went to the door, there was a bathroom there, and I'm like, oh, so I went and used the restroom. And when I came out, that man was standing there.
Oh no, he's like following you.
Yeah, well, and he looked really sheepish, and he had his hand out like this, and he had my medals. I had my medals pinned on my collar. And I guess when I put my pack on, they flew off. And so he was handing me my medals, and I was like, thank you, and then I saw one of them was missing, and I said, oh, where's St. Jerome? And so he ran out in the garden. He was looking in the grass for St. Jerome, and I was too. And then I said, oh, well, I guess St. Jerome is for somebody else. And, I left, but he just changed like that, and I just thought, well, he was thinking that I was ruining his life. And then he saw my medals, and he thought, oh, this must be a holy woman. Here I am yelling at a holy woman. And
so, needed to get it together here.
Yeah. So I learned something about forgiveness in there, right?
Yeah. And patience, it sounds like too. I mean, you could have lashed out at him. You could have been aggressive towards him, which many people probably would have, but you just kind of took it in stride, went with the flow, and literally, went on to the next location. And it's kind of funny that all of that transpired because, we have a choice in the way that we react to people. And you made a choice to just be like, all right, I'm going to continue to move on rather than get angry at this man,
Well, I was thinking about, because I had read that there were grumpy people on the Camino. So I'm like, oh, okay, here it is,
So are these grumpy people walking the Camino, or are they're working on the Camino or volunteering?
Most of them were working on the Camino. I think like one thing is that it is such a blessing for them to work with the pilgrims if they have that mindset. Mm-hmm. But if they need an extra job and they go down to the albergue and it's like they got a different attitude, right?
Yeah,
they're getting paid to clean the place, and then I ruined his life there.
Well, and it's such a different way of life in Europe as well. I've traveled to over 50 countries myself, and so living in the States, it's very different when you're in other countries because they do value their quality time. They, you know, look at life a lot more differently than we do here in America. I mean, we work, and then we fit in our family oftentimes, where they fit in the work, you know, to be able to spend time with their family. So, you know, he probably was on a very strict schedule and wanted to get home, to be with his family, because they have these very, I remember when I was in Croatia, and we sat down for a meal and it lasted hours, you know, but it was so nice because everyone was so present. And they were there. We're in the States. We're eating in our car. We're driving to the next location.
I know.
We don't value or appreciate the food that we are putting in our mouth, right?
Right. I know. I was in Japan one time, and I got this thing with rice and something in it. Looked like something you could eat on the way, you know. And I did, and people were just staring at me for eating in public on the go, or it was very strange.
It is. So can you so you've told us about some of the people. Can you tell us about maybe an adventure that you had that was you know, that was positive?
Yeah, well, that turned out positive, right?
Yes, it did.
But I was walking out in the hills. I mean, it was just kind of an arid area. Not too many trees, not too many grass, but you could see far away. I was walking on this trail, and I saw this castle in the distance, and it had big spires and big arches, and it was just like storybook, you know. And so I walked up to it. It said the convent of Saint Anton or something like that, and then I realized it's a ruins because some of the walls were fallen down, and so I walked in under one of the arches that the trail went in, and over, like, I could hear Irish fairy music and people playing flutes and harps and stuff like that. And
I would have definitely been drawn to that.
Yeah. And so I kind of looked over to the right, and there was, under another one of the arches, there was this guy, and he had, this Filipino guy with a kilt on and a white t-shirt. And he was making egg salad sandwiches and putting them in baggies and to sell, you know, and he had a coffee pot in behind him. And so, he had a refrigerated, thing in front of him. So I was just amazed. And so I asked him, do you have a restroom? And he pointed over, there was a trailer over there with a restroom in it. And so I went and used the restroom, and then I came back and got a cup of coffee from him. Didn't really need an egg salad sandwich, but but it was just like a charming thing that you wouldn't even think that you would see. It was just an anomaly.
Yeah, a Filipino in a kilt, nonetheless.
Yeah, and a white t-shirt.
That's funny. And I think when we travel, those are the unexpected things. I know when I went to Turkey, I was a little hesitant. It was over 10 years ago. It was when we were, the Iraq war and all of this stuff was going on. And being American, I was a little hesitant to go into Turkey just because of what was going on. I didn't know how they were going to respond to Americans. And when I got in there, we went to one of the ruins as well. We went to Ephesus, and where Jesus, was. And I remember walking around the ruins, and there was this little man, and he came up, and he didn't speak any English, but he had asked me and my friend if we wanted a cup of tea with him and his friend. And we were like, okay, because we weren't really knowing what to expect. And the whole time I was in Turkey, they kept handing me these evil eyes, like every time, these little blue evil eyes. And by the end of the day, I had like 20 of them, and my friend didn't have any. And so I have blonde hair, blue eyes, and my friend had dark hair, and she actually had one green eye, one brown eye.
Oh my.
And she's like, where did you get all of these these little trinkets from? And I'm like, every time I bought a cup of coffee or I bought something, they handed this to me. And then I later realized that that's their way of protection. When they see people with blue eyes, they don't know whether or not to trust them. So they hand them the evil eye to protect me. It was to protect me and to protect them until they can really get a feel for your intention. And this stems all the way back to the Viking times and prior to that. And so there's actually a little kind of conflict between Greece and Turkey as to who started the evil eye. It's really funny, but that little time that I had with that man, not even speaking any English, we had a beautiful cup of tea and we sat there in Ephesus where John the Baptist was baptized, and, all of these really neat, holy experiences. And to just have that moment to share with someone who was not of my culture and didn't even speak the language I spoke is so it was so healing for me. And it just felt really nice, because I do think when we go on these holy pilgrimages, or we go on these little treks, we expand our awareness, right? We expand our consciousness and to other cultures. And it sounds like that's exactly what you were doing. You were meeting all these people. And even though they weren't speaking English, you had a beautiful encounter with someone. And I did too. And that in itself is a memory, right?
Yeah. One time I was walking out in, the hills, and I came to this place and they had all these couches and I would say Turkish rugs on the, behind them. And it was all set up to be a resting place for the pilgrims.
Oh.
And they had fruit and they had tea. They didn't want any money. And you could just sit there and enjoy yourself, talk to other pilgrims, talk to them. And I was just really amazed. And it was so funny because I asked this guy to take my picture. And so, gave him my camera, he took my picture. And then afterwards, he came over to me, put his arm around me, and took a selfie with me. So, so I still remember him because I still have a picture of him.
It's funny that all over the world, everyone knows what a selfie is.
Right.
That's a common concept.
Yeah, that's great.
That's so neat. And so, Kathleen, what advice would you like to share with others that you may have learned on your journey, for those who are thinking about going on a trek like this or a spiritual journey? And I know one, just based off of your age, I think that's fantastic. I mean, I'm in my mid 40s and sometimes I think, can I do it? And to think that you did this in your early 70s is absolutely, I just adore that. I think that's amazing. And so what words of advice can you share with those out there who may be hesitant to do something like this?
Find yourself some time. You can do it if you find the time. And, I had to wait till I was, 70 in order to have time. I didn't have time before that. Start walking, and then you can, you'll be good. If you don't have a lot of time, you can walk a shorter Camino. There, you can start anywhere along the way. My friend Judy started in Lyon, and many people start in Sarria, which is 100K before Santiago. So you can still get your Compostela certificate if you walk from Sarria. So you can do that in like 4 days. I mean, some people do it in a weekend, but so just think about, okay, so 500 miles. I was going to go 500 miles. I thought, well, I'm going to do 10 miles a day. That's 50 days, right? And so then I started walking more kilometers a day. And so you can actually do it. It's good to keep your body so that you can walk. I mean, right now I walk it's only 2 miles a day, but I walk up a big hill every day, and I walk home again. And so, because I don't want to lose it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just walking is one of the best things that you can do for your body. And it doesn't matter what pace you're going, just get out and create movement, right? Just
Yeah, it's a
going at
real low
snail's pace or a rabbit's, you know.
it's a real low skill activity, just one foot in front of the other. And
Absolutely.
yeah, you and when you go, if you go on the Camino, everybody wants to have a very light pack. So when you gather your articles, what I did was I went online and I wrote in lightweight, hiking pants, or lightweight sun protection shirt, or whatever you want, and the universe has it for us, right?
Yeah. You'd be surprised, right? And so what do you have any advice to share for people who may be overcoming fear of doing something like this on their own?
I have to tell you, I have some guardian angels. I wasn't really alone. I have 4 guardian angels that I know personally. And so they came with me, and I never felt like I was alone. There's people there, and I really think there's the Knights Templar, quite an ancient order, but they are still there protecting the people on the Camino.
Interesting. That's very interesting.
And the other thing is, I belong to Camigas, and it's a Facebook group. And like one time I didn't know which way to go, and I was supposed to go straight ahead, but all the signs, there was signs, don't go this way, don't go this way. And I was like, where do I go? So I just wrote, because I have my phone, I just put into Camigas, I took a picture of the place and I said, which way do I go? And somebody came back on and said, okay, told me which way to go. So that was great. So the Camigas is for women on the Camino.
Oh, that's really neat. And so you had Wi-Fi connection then on the Camino.
Yeah, I have an iPhone, and it's everywhere, right?
Well, not out here in the Pacific Northwest, some places.
Oh, yeah, I did actually. Every once in a while, I did not. And there's apps too. There's Camino Ninja app, and you can follow the trail on the app. And a couple of times when I used that app, I just used it in Portugal. I didn't have it yet when I went the first time. And it was like, it would like lead me right to the albergue. And so that was great.
That is great. So what was one thing that you thought was the most beautiful, one of the scenery or the landscape?
Yeah. I was just walking, and I was in this area, and there were so many quite tall, yellow-leafed trees. And it was like I was in a yellow room, and the canopy was right above me, and I was walking down this trail that would look like a farm trail. I mean, there were fences on both sides, and this dog came walking up, and I'm afraid of dogs, but this dog, it was a little beagle, and he came, and then he kept going, and he knew exactly where he was going, and that was very cool. And that was a lovely time. And then so much greenery walking through. It was just like the forest primeval, walking through some of these places that on the side of the trail there would be just lush. I mean, you could see baby oak trees coming out of the ground, and little flowers that looked like they were dancing ladies, and really beautiful.
Sounds
and looking down at the little river, and the moss would be flowing with the water, and maybe even part of the tree next to you was down in the water too and flowing with the moss, and it's just so gorgeous.
Oh, sounds beautiful. So Kathleen, how can people find you? How can they learn more about your book, Wisdom on the Camino? Where can they buy it?
Yeah, so here's my book, Wisdom. Oh, I guess the light's kind of weird. Wisdom on the Camino, a spiritual journey, sharing forgiveness and possibilities to inspire the rest of your life. I self-published on Amazon. And so you just go in there and put in Wisdom on the Camino and you'll get it. I mean, don't be afraid to just buy, get the Kindle version because they pay me per page. So just read it, okay?
I love Kindle. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the across from the table of contents, there's this page that says read this first. And actually, when I wrote the book, everybody was telling me, oh, you have to put the pictures in. There's, and I said, well, gee, then the book will be $500, nobody's going to buy it. And so I made a website with portfolios and galleries. And so on this page, it tells you how to go there, and you have to double opt in. I'm terribly sorry. That's how the world is nowadays. And so you double opt in, and then they send you the word you need to stick in there, and then you can see the pictures, and they're arranged per chapter. So when you read chapter 1, you can look at the chapter 1 pictures, and so that's my gift to my readers.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so your website is www.wisdomonthecamino.com, correct?
Right. And on there is the link to Amazon too.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Kathleen. This has been a really beautiful journey with you. And, the Camino was not on my radar, and now it is. I am definitely going to add that to my list of places that I would love to visit, because I am too on a spiritual journey. I think that's what brought me from Florida out to the Pacific Northwest, just really deeply connecting with nature in a way that I was not before. And so I have definitely got a list of places, holy places, spiritual places that I'd love to visit. And the Camino is now on my list. So thank you for sharing your wisdom that you, went through during that beautiful trek across Portugal, Spain, France. And that's amazing. So thank you for coming on the show today and sharing your journey with us.
Thank you too. It was lovely.
You deserve to navigate your life as an empath in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT Tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.thesoulcafe.org.